The views and opinions expressed by guests on So This Is Love are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the official position of the podcast or the interviewer. A trigger warning to our listeners today. This episode contains depictions of domestic violence. Listener discretion is advised. If you or anyone else is affected by these issues, please find support in the show notes of this episode. Hello, everybody. This is Jules. Welcome back to So This Is Love. A quick note to our listeners, if you would like to support this podcast, you can do so via our till number or PayPal. All the details are in the description box of this episode. Your contribution is what will keep us going. To my guests, who have so openly shared their stories of healing, reflection, and triumph, thank you for allowing us to grow through your journey. Remember, you can find us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you haven't already, do subscribe, as it does help us reach more people. So This Is Love is a space where people can relate to one another, learn from one another, and find a sense of belonging. Enjoy. Coming up on So This Is Love.
And he's like, you know what, that's fine. And he started, it feels like you can't take leadership from a man. And I was like, okay, so I can't take leadership because I'm telling you of the tone we set for this relationship and you are going against the tone. So now I'm telling you about it, and now it comes, I'm the one who cannot take leadership from a man.
Welcome to So This Is Love, a podcast about love, the loss of love, heartbreak, and the meeting of self. We share stories on how the relationships we once had teach us about who we are and define who we become. And maybe through these stories, we can answer that age-old question. Is it better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all? So, this is love. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of So This Is Love. Today, I am joined by the sweet and soft-spoken Sophia, not her real name, and she'll be here to tell us about a very defining relationship in her life with a man that we'll be calling today Bumpy, also not his real name. The reason that Sophia has come here today to share this story is because this is a relationship that was very defining for her. It's one that happened while she was quite young, and I must say she's still very quite young. And it's one of those relationships that even when I was just hearing the highlights of what went on in it, was that she was far too young to have experienced the kind of intensity. I don't want to give spoilers, but the kind of intensity of the stuff that was going on. And in her own words, Sophia says that she felt like she was just too young to be going through all that. And the reason that she really wants to share this story with us here today is because she wants to be able to allow other women to be able to identify the telltale signs of a relationship that is toxic, abusive, and especially one where there is a power dynamic at play that essentially in the end put her at a disadvantage. And as we get deeper into the story, I think you'll be able to kind of understand what we're talking about. So welcome, Sophia.
Thank you, Jules.
How do you feel to be here today?
A bit nervous, of course, but happy.
Happy? Yeah, I know we met somewhere out there in the world.
Yes.
At an event, and you came up to me and I was like, we spoke for a little bit and I was like, oh my God, how old are you? You, what happened? So first of all, thank you for having the balls to come up to me. That event was it was a very kind of star-studded situation. Even me, I was like, hey, uku sasa ni wapi?
I know.
So thanks for coming up to say hello. You've joined my table and it was lovely to meet you. So I'd like you to, take your time as you're taking us through this narration. If at any time you need to take a break, we can take a break. And I'm going to start this episode with the same question that I ask all my guests. Take us to the beginning. How did you and Bumpy meet?
Bumpy and I coincidentally met at a smocha stand. I was very new to the area where we met. So at the time, I was a waitress. So I was very new. It was the first time we moved there. It was my first time having a shift that I needed to clock in at night. So I was able to explore the area during the day. And this specific stand where we met, I'd go by my smoochers there a lot of times. I'd see him on and off. But since I was always so tired, I'd just buy what I'm buying, talking to the guy who sells my smoochers, and then go back home.
What's a smoocher? Is it a smoky? I'm a bit confused.
A smoocher is a combination of a chapati and a smoky. It's put together. Yeah. So this one specific day, as I was a waitress, I was also still a student. So this one time I needed to write assignment for school. My laptop crashed. So the only person I knew in the area at that time was the smoocher selling guy. So I go to him and I'm like, I need a laptop. I need to write reports and I'll bring your laptop back in 3 hours max. He's like, cool, but my laptop is very old. Word does not work and all that. So I was like, okay, that can't help. So Bumpy was there when I was asking for a laptop. So when my smoocher guy said he doesn't have, I was just like, let me figure it out. So I started walking away. Bumpy followed me, tapped my shoulder. He's like, I've seen you around. I can help you with a laptop. I was like, perfect. I promise I'll get it back in 3 hours, tops. He's like, sure. He walks me to my gate. He's like, let me walk you to your gate, see where you stay, and then I can go home, grab my laptop, and then bring it back. So let me get your number. So instead of just knocking the gate, I just call you and then you can come out. I was like, sure. That's what happened. He gave me the laptop. He's like, this laptop, I don't even use it. It just stays in the house. So what you'll do is just use it until you're able to fix your own laptop. Now I was like, sure. He would text. But since our schedules were very different, me being a waitress and a student, and him being someone who works an 8 to 5, the dynamics of communication aren't working, like probably to his favor. So on days I'm off shift or on offs is when we'd communicate, which was okay because I was not really interested in him. And then on meeting him, I was pregnant. And I was very young, I was 20. So I explained to him on one day, I think 3 weeks later, we've spoken. I now told him I need to bring your laptop back. I fixed my laptop, so I'm good. Thank you. So we meet after work. I was off. He's off work. So he comes in a suit, fully dressed. He looked so nice. I was so impressed. I was just like, wow, he looks very nice. And then my mind just clicked. You think he looks nice and you're pregnant. And then at the time I was pregnant, the person who impregnated me didn't want the pregnancy. So I was just with it, like it's me in this pregnancy. So my mind is just like snapped back into reality. So I looked at him, I was like, okay, you look nice, but thank you. We talked, we stood outside the gate, we talked for like 20 minutes. And I went back to the house. So at this time, I'm staying with my mom, of course. My mom was a bit bitter, of course, because I'm 20, I'm pregnant, I'm juggling waitressing and school. So she wasn't happy that she'd see me, of course, talking to another man, because in her head, as an African mom, she's just thinking, hey, you've not even finished the first one, now you're into another one, surely. So I got home on this specific day and my mom is furious. She's like, why are you talking to men? And I'm like, chill. It's just I was returning the laptop that was helping me doing my assignments as I fixed mine. She's like, okay. But we still continued talking with Bumpy. So we kept tabs here, there, which was okay. I didn't mind it. It would be memes, nothing that would make me like keep quiet or ghost him. So we'd exchange memes, we'd laugh, we'd share reels, and always on WhatsApp. I remember him having a car. So this one time, I wanted to go to the clinic because I was pregnant. So it's my first time going to the clinic. I was nervous. And Bumpy had told me that he had a daughter. So before telling him I was pregnant, he had already told me I have a daughter. She's the apple of my eye. She's the reason I leave, breathe, and all that. And I was like, that's nice. So on this day, I wanted to go to the clinic. Bumpy was the first person I thought to call because he had a child. So I was just like, he's gone through this, so it would be easy for him to understand me, which he did. He didn't even ask a question. He immediately just asked, what time do you want to go? Where do you want to go? And I was explaining, I just want to go for a checkup, and that's it. This day was specifically my off day, but I had classes. So I went for my classes, and then we met. He picked me up in his car comfortably, and we went to the hospital. I paid for my checkup and everything. And he was okay with it. I checked how far along I was. The doctors asked me what I would want because considering my age, they knew, of course, it would be a struggle. So it was either I keep it or get rid of it. I told the doctors I haven't decided. So the doctors were like, you have like just 1 more month until you decide, because after a month, you just have to keep the baby. I was like...
Were you visibly pregnant at that point? Not yet?
Not yet.
How far along?
At the time when I went for clinic, I was about 2.5 months in. Yeah. So it was not even visible at all. Yeah. And Bumpy was with me in every room that I went in. He'd hold my hand. He'd like tell me, you know what, it's going to be okay. Whatever you decide, nobody's judging you and you'll be fine. I'll walk with you through this. I've experienced this, so I know firsthand what you're feeling. I felt very comforted, very comforted. At the time, all my instincts were to get rid of it. I was 20. If anything happened, I wouldn't be able to raise a child on my own. I wouldn't. Even if I tried how hard at that time, I wouldn't. So after a while, I decided to get a procedure done and I terminated the pregnancy. It was the appropriate thing to do at that time. So that's what I did. All through, Bumpy was with me. During the day that I went, the days after, even after work, he'd try and pop by at the gate just to say hi, see me. And for some reason, he'd always bring me fruits. So I'd go to the gate, see Bumpy. Then when I go back to the house, my mom would always ask me, where have you gotten the fruits from? And I'm like, just outside here, I met somebody, like a friend of mine. She has given me the fruits. And every time I had to ensure that my mom knew it was a girl, because if she found out it was a guy, she would be very uneasy. So that's how it went for a long time. And after the whole termination, we got very, very close because he'd talk to me about work, my waitressing job. He'd talk to me about school. He'd help me with assignments. And then at the same time, when we were just very new together with Bumpy, I started doing... So at that point, I was being trained. It was going good. But now it was a load added on to the waitressing I have in school. So Bumpy would come in very handy when I've done training and I was told to write reports. He'd handle it. Like I'd just dictate what he'd write and he'd type it and I'd be done, which for me was amazing. So my mom found out that me and Bumpy are close. My mom was against it. She's like, no, you've just gone through one thing. Get time. Just be in your 20s. Learn about what you are in your 20s. What do you want to be? The things. Make money. Go out. The likes. That's what she was all about. So she was very not happy about the idea of me and Bumpy being close. And then at that time, my mom would look at Bumpy and she'd be like, he also looks very old. Yeah? Sophia, he looks very, very old. So ensure that whatever is going on is something that you're sure you're ready for. At that time, I'm not even sure about anything. I'm just enjoying this person because they'll write my reports. They're there when I want them to be. So it was okay on my end. So with time, we eventually started dating. A month or two later after. And it started very nicely. Very, very nicely. He had a car, so we'd go out for rides. And Since I loved car rides, I liked food. That's what we'd do. We'd buy takeout, pizza, chicken, and then in the car, a ride. And that would be an ideal date for me.